The logistics cluster has seen a sizable increase in economic activity since 2020, a growth rate of about 30%, which totals $48 billion in 2023 in terms of the total economic impact, which is associated with about 150,000 jobs. That spans multiple industry sectors across South Carolina and represents a sizable increase due to the increased spending on goods since the pandemic began in 2020. The main driver of growth has been a durable goods bubble, which began in the aftermath of the pandemic in 2020. Particularly in 2020 and 2021, when people were staying home, they were socially distanced, they were not going out and traveling and going to restaurants. Consumer spending pivoted significantly towards the goods market. And as a result, we saw a sizable increase in the need for transportation and related activities. And so the logistics cluster as a whole saw a sizable increase in economic activity as a result. So there's a direct correlation between much of the increase over the past 3 years and the goods bubble that emerged as a result of the pandemic. As we go forward, migration patterns in the United States strongly favor the Southeast. The US Census projects that the Southeast will see more population growth than any other region of the country. And that's great news for South Carolina, which is, of course, centered right in the heart of the Southeastern United States. As we see more people moving to this region of the country, that means more companies are going to be looking to locate in and around South Carolina to be able to distribute consumer goods. And that means a sizable increase in the logistics cluster for the foreseeable future. So these population gains are going to generate significant opportunities for logistics going forward and make it important to ensure that we can continue to experience the strong rates of economic growth that we've seen in South Carolina over the previous decade. Well, we look in general at 3 categories of jobs. We look at what we call embedded functions as well as provider functions. The provider functions are those that directly support transportation-related activities, whereas the embedded functions support more let me try that one more time. There are 2 broad categories of occupations that we see in the logistics cluster. One is what we call the provider functions, which are occupations directly related to transportation. And the second is what we call embedded functions, which are those related more towards supply chain management and logisticians and related activities. And when we look across the board, we see the bulk of the activity in the provider functions, but nevertheless, both categories represent a significant component of the cluster and represent a vital component of the cluster as a whole. The lifeblood of South Carolina is an accurate representation of logistics because logistics supports every industry in South Carolina. It permeates every industry. Every industry requires transportation-related functions. And so logistics really is providing the resources to allow South Carolina's economy to grow by facilitating activity across industry sectors. So there's no question that logistics represents a fundamental baseline for economic growth in South Carolina.